ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can enrich our heart with devotion by appreciating the devotion of your great devotees. Hare Krishna. So, thank you for coming today. Today is our last session in this series. Although we may not be able to necessarily complete the whole song, but we will try to do a quick overview of the song. Am I audible to everyone? Thank you. What's happening here? Do you have Wi-Fi here? Geo doesn't work here, is it? No, Geo doesn't work in this area?
No, you can.
Okay. We're disconnected. I don't know. Oh, you can type it out. So, do a quick overview. Till now, we have discussed how Srila Prabhupada. Sorry? Yeah, sorry. So, till now, we have discussed how Srila Prabhupada is offering his prayers and expressing his faith in the process of hearing and chanting. And we have tried to go deeper into not just appreciating the prayer, but also appreciating the principles of bhakti and how those can be applied in our lives. So, we have completed almost 3/4 of the song or 2/3 of the song. So, what I will do is, we won't be able to go over the entire song, but we'll look over the meaning and we'll focus on 1 or 2 themes or 3 themes depending on how much time we have. But before we go ahead, I would like to ask, do any of you have any questions in general about whatever we have discussed? Because if you want, we could make this into primarily a question answer session also, where we could discuss some questions about spiritual life, about bhakti. So actually, I was supposed to inform you about this earlier, but I forgot. But so, do any of you have any questions as such? Sure, we'll go ahead. Yeah, sorry, it's here. So, yesterday I discussed about the 9th text, and 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th texts are there over here. So I'll quickly go over the meanings of the text. Ki kore bujavo katha barosei chahi, shudrami dinahin kono shakti nahi. So ki kore bujavo katha, that somehow you make it happen that bujavo means understand, that they will understand what I'm speaking. And this is the blessing I seek. Bara sei chahi. And Hudrami Dinahina Kona Shakti Nahi. That I am a fallen person. I have very limited capacity. So I have no power on my own, but I need this particular blessing. And so accordingly, Athacha Enecha Prabhu Katha Boli Bare. That you, that I will speak the words. Enecha Katha Boli. Je Tomara Icha Prabhu Koro Ei Bare. That whatever is your desire, may that happen. And Akhila Jagat Guru Bachan Se Amar Alankruta Koribara Khamata Tomar. And he says that this is the blessing I seek. Now, whatever you do, I'll accept it. But I have confidence that you can make it happen. Because you are the spiritual master of the whole world. Alang Shamata Tomar, you have the capacity to ornament my words. Alang Koribar. What is the ornamentation? That the potency by which the words will be understandable for others. So then he says, if I speak, if your taba krupa hale mora katha shuddha habe, that when your mercy will be there, then my message will be pure. Dunya kabar shok dukha je ghujibe. If they understand this pure message, then they'll become free from all distress. And then he says that, my dear Lord, make me dance. It's like a puppet makes a puppeteer makes a puppet dance, make me dance. Nachao, nachao, Prabhu, nachao se mate. And then finally, that he talks about his own name. I am named Bhaktivedanta, but I have neither Bhakti nor Veda, but I have faith in the Namai Khubadaro. I have faith in the name, and with that, you can make this happen. You can make Nama Sarthak Koro. So I'll talk about 3 themes over here. Broadly, we'll see how much time we get. But first, I'll talk about prayers in general. While we have discussed till now about how Srila Prabhupada is praying, but when we pray to Krishna, what is an effective way to pray? Now, when we offer prayers, broadly speaking, prayer is a way across culture, across religion, across traditions. The human heart has tried to connect with the divine heart. We are trying to appeal to the Lord. And now I will talk about prayers from a general perspective over here. That broadly, the purpose of prayers can be twofold. Generally, most people, when they offer prayers, they want something to change. That, okay, my child is sick, please cure this child. Or, I've got a lot of this problem, I'm not able to solve it, please solve this problem. So, at one level, prayer is used to bring about some change in the outer world. I was in Varanasi, and I saw in India, many places there are small Hanuman temples. They're just like reddish structures. And on this Hanuman temple, I saw, I don't know whether it was a joke or a serious, it was on the temple. It said, "Tum to ho bal brahmachari, mujhe de do ek nari." So, you are a celibate, you don't need any woman, so at least give one woman to me. Now, this seems to be like a very overtly materialistic prayer. But if you go deeper, yes, we all would like to have, those who want to get married, they want to have a good life partner. So we pray for that. We may pray for our loved ones' well-being. So prayer in general, there is a common denominator that we want some change. Now the change that we may seek may be in the outer world, or the change may be in the inner world. So in the bhakti tradition generally, see, there is, broadly speaking, there is punya and there is bhakti. While they are similar, they are not the same at all. Punya is basically piety, by which we do good in this world and we get some good in this world. Bhakti, on the other hand, is where we develop love for God, by which we get out of this world and go back to Krishna. So, while both are good actions, but we could say the difference is punya is a good thing, bhakti is a God thing. God thing means it is connected primarily with God. Now, of course, we may say when we do punya also we offer prayers, there may be bhakti in it. Yes, that is true. Anybody who offers prayers, they will have some bhakti element in it. But the difference when we say outer change and inner change is that quite often in these prayers, the focus is that if I am here and God is up here and there is something in the world that I want. So, if we want this thing in the world, then we look up to look down. That means we pray to God so that something in this world can be attained. Now, this is also good. Krishna says this is also Sukriti. So, those people who are at the Sukritina, Krishna says. The Chaturvidha Bhajante Mam Janah Sukrutino Arjuna. This is a good thing. So the primary interest, so the prayer is associated with something in the world. Now, the other kind of prayer is that, let's put it another way. If this is Krishna Bhavas, and what's happening? So we are over here. Here, overall, the point is our life is we want to offer the things of this world to Krishna. Yesterday I talked about Artha and Paramartha. So we may seek Artha, but the focus is on Paramartha. And in such a situation, while we seek the things of the world to offer to the Lord, so the focus is on the Lord. So the difference here is God here is the means and the world is the ends. Whereas here, the world is the means and God is the end. So means and ends is basically what is the tool that we are using and what is the purpose we are pursuing. Now, in this case, we accept that if this does not work, this is one, plan A, plan B. We would like to offer things of this world to God, and that's why we would like to do things in the world. Now, we want to build a beautiful temple for Krishna, to organize a wonderful festival for Krishna. You remember in one of the first sessions we talked about offering our heart and offering the world. Both are important. So now when we are praying, now we may say this is the mode of bhakti. In bhakti, the primary focus is on connecting with Krishna. The primary focus is not so much in getting certain things done. Now, does that mean that a devotee cannot pray for things in this world? Not like that. It is ultimately what is in our heart is important. So, in general, whenever we pray, prayer is an expression of the heart. It's an expression of emotion. And if it's an expression of emotion, then broadly, we can have the emotion as abstract or it can be specific. So what do I mean differentiate between abstract and specific? So for example, if we say, say if we come to know like when a few months ago in Los Angeles, there was a severe fire, the forest fire had exploded. Now, I had been in the area where the Palisades where the fire had occurred. So I knew some devotees in that area. So now, if we hear of some disaster happening somewhere, we may just offer a generic prayer. Dear Lord, let those who have been afflicted, may they find your shelter, may they get some relief. But if we know someone specifically over there, then our prayer becomes more specific. And when is our emotion activated more? Specific, isn't it? See, one death, as it is, one death is a tragedy. 1,000 deaths is a statistic. So that unfortunately, it is that this generic, the abstract or the generic, it does not trigger emotion. That's why when we are praying, sometimes when you think that while praying we should be surrendered, do you need to stand there? You can come and sit on we have space. You can come a little closer. Hmm? All of you, or it will obstruct, is it? We have space here also. Are you able to see from there? Okay. Okay. That's okay. So the more in general, sometimes we may think that, oh, I don't want to be in material consciousness. I want to be in spiritual consciousness. So I should not pray anything to Krishna. Well, that is one way of looking at it. The point is not that we should, pure devotional service does not mean that we have no desire. It is, it means we have no desire for anything that is greater than our desire for Krishna. As devotees, we may desire things for Krishna. So, purity of devotion is not determined so much by the presence of desires as by the prominence of desire. Which desire is more important? See, often desire, if we consider, is not, it's a multi-level thing. That means we may have some superficial desire, surface desire we may have. Mm. What does it mean? We are passing by some shop and we see some new model of a phone has come. Think I want to buy this phone. Or we pass by some cloth shop and say, oh, this new clothes, I want to buy these clothes. We see something and we get the desire. Superficial desire is more like, you could say, it's outside in. It's largely comes from outside to inside. Hmm? But then there can be deeper desires. Hmm? And then at the very core of our being is our deepest desire. Ultimately, every soul's deepest desire is the desire to love Krishna, to become united in a loving relationship with Krishna. Now, sometimes when something is very deep, when something is like somebody speaks a very deep class, there are two options. We go deep to understand the class, or what happens is it's so deep that we don't understand it all. So, like if something that is very deep, there is no deep. Deep means light. You know? So, if we don't have a clear enough light, then what happens? We don't understand anything at all. So, like that, sometimes our spiritual desire, our desire to love and serve Krishna, can be so deep inside that it can be just locked inside. And many times for us as devotees, we know the ultimate desire of our life is, okay, I want to go back to Krishna. But that can seem so abstract because it seems so far away. It seems so, it doesn't immediately trigger. It doesn't immediately trigger some energy, some emotion within us. Because that desire is very deep, the destination seems to be very far away. And that's why, as devotees, we also need some, what we call as intermediate desires. Intermediate desires could be that, okay, what would I like to do for Krishna? Prabhupada defines Krishna consciousness in different ways. In one lecture, he says that, how do you know if you are Krishna conscious? He says, if you come in front of the deities and if you feel that Krishna is asking you, what are you doing for me? If you feel that Krishna is asking me this question, then you are Krishna conscious. The most people come to a temple and ask God, what are you doing for me? So now it's understandable. We have lots of concerns and troubles in our life. It's not wrong to have that desire. But Krishna consciousness at one level means that if we have a relationship with Krishna, Krishna has a mission in this world and he wants us to be a part of his mission. So now what are you doing for me? So all of us, the superficial desires, they will just come and go. They won't stay very long. But to get to this deepest desire, it is to go back to Krishna. Now, deeper desire could be according to our swabhava. according to our nature. So, for example, somebody has a nature to, they naturally like music. Then they may have a desire that I want to learn singing for Krishna. I want to sing very nicely for Krishna. Somebody may have interest in cooking. Somebody may have interest in writing. Somebody may have interest in painting, decorating, managing, organizing. We all have certain talents and interests and gifts. And we naturally want to do something according to those talents. So we can do those things for Krishna. When the Krishna conscious movement expanded to Europe, London became the headquarters. And at that time, devotees from whether it was Netherlands or Germany or France or other places, all the places, they would come to London, and Prabhupada would mainly come to London, and they would meet and give report to Prabhupada. So there's one devotee who had saw Prabhupada for the first time. His name is Rochan, Prabhupada disciple. So he saw that different devotees were coming and giving reports to Prabhupada. This is how the programs are going on over here. This is how the preaching is going on over here. And then he thought, Prabhupada, he thought that everybody has something to do for Prabhupada. But he said, but I don't have anything. So he asked Prabhupada, what can I do for you? Prabhupada says, what would you like to do for me? So he said, whatever you tell me, I'll do, Prabhupada. No, he said, what would you like to do for Krishna? He thought I should be surrendered. Prabhupada, whatever you tell me, I'll do. Krishna, I will do. So Prabhupada became clear. Understand our philosophy. Just find out what you like to do and then do it for Krishna. So now, this is a very broad understanding of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, for some devotees, the spiritual master may give a very specific instruction. Do this or don't do this. But the spiritual master may not be always with us. The spiritual master may not always know us and our situation. So we also need to take initiative. Find out what we like to do and do it for Krishna. So now why am I talking about all this with respect to prayer? So Srila Prabhupada, through all his philosophical, is the very devotionally deep and philosophically informed prayers, he's asking for a very specific blessing from Krishna. Baro yahi chahi. What is the vara I'm asking? He's saying, please make my words understandable to the audience. So the more specific a prayer, the more intense will be our emotional investment in it. The more we will feel invested in it. So basically, for all of us, when we want to offer prayers, so when we offer prayers, there are two aspects. One is acceptance. Now, Krishna, whatever you do, I accept it. So that is acceptance. That is an important part of it. And when Draupadi raises her hands, that is acceptance. So this idea of accepting whatever happens, that is one part of. So we pray Krishna, Prabhupada would Mare Krishna Rakhe Krishna Mare ke. So whatever Krishna does, we accept that. That is one aspect of devotion, and we may pray to accept that. So that is true. At the same time, this is not the only way. There is acceptance of Krishna's will. What happens, I'll accept it. But there is also acceptance of the responsibility to do Krishna's will. Each one of us needs to take responsibility. So, for example, why is Srila Prabhupada in America? Because primarily it is the second part. It was not that Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur gave the instruction to preach in the Western world only to Prabhupada. No, he had wanted it to happen. He had been trying to make it happen, and he had expressed this frequently to many of his disciples. And then he funded two of his disciples to go abroad and try to make it happen also. So in many ways, it was an instruction that was given to many people. But Prabhupada took the responsibility to make it happen. So our bhakti is seen in both ways. That whatever happens in our life, if it's beyond our control, we accept it. And we accept this is Krishna's will. But at the same time, we also accept the responsibility to do Krishna's will. Now, Krishna's will doesn't necessarily mean a specific direction. Now, Krishna has given us individuality, and Krishna wants us to use our individuality. So we may feel inspired. I want to serve Krishna in a particular way. Like I mentioned this earlier. That is the gopis cook for Krishna. It is not that Krishna every day gives a menu and a recipe. This is what you should cook. This is how you should cook. No, the gopis know what they can cook. They know what Krishna likes, and then Krishna would surprise me. So the idea over there is that we, whatever desires we have, the more specific our prayer is, the more likely we will be more emotionally invested in it. So often our superficial desires are materialistic. We see somebody having a big house and think I should also have a big house. We see somebody having a particular kind of hairstyle or a lifestyle or a clothes style or whatever, you think I want to have that kind of thing. So that's okay. It's not that those desires are necessarily bad, but they are very superficial. If they're fulfilled, we get some pleasure. If they're not fulfilled, there's a little annoyance. But it's not the end of the world. It's not that is going to cause some deep existential dissatisfaction to us. But there are deeper desires. And now the test is that it's not so much whether we have desires or not. The test is whether our desires are taking us toward Krishna or taking us away from Krishna. So, making our prayers specific is very helpful. Generally speaking, when we talk about desire, so if we consider desire management, there are two extremes. If there is too much desire, that can lead to addiction. It can lead to attachment. It can even lead to addiction. But sometimes we say, I want to give up all desires. Well, maybe, but quite often, too little desire, it does not lead to liberation. It actually leads to depression. Now, depression can sometimes be a clinical, complex phenomena. But one of the characteristics of depression is that a person doesn't feel like doing anything. There is no desire to do anything. So from this perspective, too much desire is Rajoguna and too little desire is Tamoguna. So when we talk about giving up desire, it is that we develop a higher sense of meaning in life, a higher sense of purpose in life. So, but if sometimes what happens, we develop like premature renunciation, where we are not actually develop attraction to Krishna, but we just become indifferent to everything in the world. Then what happens is we don't have strong spiritual desires and we don't have very strong material desire also. Then we don't rise toward transcendence, we go down toward ignorance. So, too little as devotees, sometimes we may have the ultimate desire, I want to go back to Krishna. But okay, what do I want to do in this life while I am trying to go towards Krishna? So, the point is, having desires is important. Nothing that Krishna has created is intrinsically bad. Desires themselves are not a bad thing. But there are two things. So what is the balance? It is that there is desire that is selected and directed toward Krishna. That means, nobody, even if a person is totally materialistic, they cannot fulfill all their desire. Nobody can eat all. Sometimes people say, okay, I have so many rules, I cannot eat this food or that food because not offered to Krishna. But even if somebody doesn't follow any rules with respect to diet, still nobody can eat all the food that is there in the world. Nobody can fulfill all their desires. So everybody has to select their desires. which desires are going to be fulfilled. We are going to pursue. And so selected and then directed towards Krishna. So this selection of desires is a characteristic Sattva Guna. So when a student goes to college, there may be the desire, oh, I want to study and want to have a good career. There may also be the desire, college, I want to have fun. I want to party, I want to have fun, I want to hang out with other friends, I want to make friends. Well, that's okay. It's not a wrong thing. But which is a more important desire? Okay, making friendships, having some fun, that is good. But what you're not come to college just to have fun. I come to college to study. So selecting our desires is important. And selecting desires is a characteristic of Sattva Guna. And then directing the desires towards Krishna is bhakti, or as we say, Shuddha Sattva. So for all of us, so going back to what differentiated Srila Prabhupada from his many god brothers was not that he was more renounced than them. Some of them had taken sannyas right in their youth itself. Now Prabhupada is of course very renounced, but what differentiated him primarily was that he took up the desire to fulfill his spiritual master's desire. So ultimately, the gift that we get from the Guru Shishya Parampara, the gift that we get from Guru, from Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, from Vaishnavas, ultimately is the desire to serve Krishna. So when we have specific prayers, now that does not, just because our prayer is specific does not necessarily mean the prayer will be fulfilled. As devotees, ultimately we understand Krishna is in control. But the more specific a prayer, the more likely we are going to be invested in the prayer, and more we are likely to be invested in the service. And sometimes it may happen that, okay, that prayer will be fulfilled. Sometimes the prayer may not be fulfilled. But because of having that particular desire and the prayer and the endeavor, then with all of that, what will happen is we will become tivrena bhakti yogena. That intense bhakti. See, intense is a word which in devotional circles and in the secular world has very different meanings. In devotional circles, intense means serious. In outside circles, intense means overbearing, domineering. So it's like, if you say he's a very intense person, hey, what did I do wrong? Why are you calling me intense person? So words sometimes have different meanings in different contexts. But what we're talking about is that when we are going to be serious about our bhakti, how do we become serious? Yes, there is a sadhana which we want to do seriously, but we cannot be doing sadhana throughout our day. There are so many other aspects in our life. So the idea is our desires, can they direct us towards Krishna? So it's like, I'll give one last example to conclude this point, that why are desires important in bhakti? That because ultimately each soul has a personal relationship with Krishna. And what does having a personal relationship or having individuality mean? It means basically every individual will have their own interests, their own ways of functioning, their own dreams or aspirations. So these are just natural. Now we may wonder, okay, if somebody has an interest in music, now is that something which is come by our past karma, or is that arranged by Krishna? Doesn't matter. Isn't it? You remember one of the sessions I talked about how the cause of something and the purpose of something. Whatever be the cause, Krishna can use it in for his purpose. We discuss about how whatever cause, that Draupadi committed a mistake, or Duryodhan tried to reject Krishna. But whatever cause, there can be divine purpose through that cause. So even if somebody's interest has come from some field, doesn't matter. So whatever be our interest, we try to use it in Krishna's service. The key principle here is that we try to become emotionally invested in Krishna. So the idea is we want to offer our heart to Krishna. But offering our heart takes a long time. So till we can offer our heart to Krishna, we offer what is in our heart to Krishna. Now, what do you mean? What is in our heart? There can be different things. Then we may have attraction towards, as in music. We may have attraction towards decoration. We may have attraction towards reading and learning. So we offer what is in our heart to Krishna, and gradually by that, slowly our heart will be offered to Krishna. So it's like incremental. We offer our heart to Krishna. That means there is nothing in our heart except Krishna. Till then, what we offer, what is in our heart to Krishna. It's like a staircase. This is like a staircase over here. So now we may say, can everything that is there in our heart be offered to Krishna? I feel envious of this person. I'll offer this to Krishna. No, that is not the point over here. That's why select and then direct. So some desires have to be deselected. Some desires have to be rejected. But we need to offer what is in our heart to Krishna. And that's one reason why charity is considered so important. Because money does occupy a significant place in our heart. And some devotees say that. One devotee was telling me that, right now I cannot give any charity, but my plan is I want to become a billionaire. And when I become a billionaire, Prabhupada said give 50%, I plan to give 75%. But till then, I need all the money. I can't even give 0.5% right. So I told him that see, charity is not just an activity, it's a mentality. It is not so much the quantity of what we give. The quantity what we give is important, but it's the disposition, the frame of mind of offering to Krishna. That is more important. So now how much we give, that will depend on Deshkala Patra. And what applies to money can apply to other things also. Now, money is one form of artha, but time is another form of artha. Then our talent is another form of artha. So the idea is, we want to offer our heart to Krishna, but till we get there, we need to be able to offer something to Krishna in a very tangible way. And having that kind of plan and having that kind of purpose will be helpful. So Prabhupada is going to America. He's toward the last, if you see, the last prayer which Prabhupada will make is, Nachao, nachao, Prabhu, nachao se mate. Just make me dance the way, however you want, make me dance. But so that is accepting Krishna's will. But before that, he's also accepting the responsibility to Krishna's will. And he's saying, Krishna, this is my plan. This is what I plan to do. And please make my words understandable. So this is a strategy, and this is what help I am seeking from you. So, any questions or comments? Questions at this point? Yes, Mataji.
When we were talking of the desire management, initially most of us will be in the too much category, and then after some days, at least with me, I observed that there is a slow complacency creeping in, and then we become like into the other category. Like how do we, after going from this too much addiction to that I don't want to do anything, like very less inspiration, how do we get to that mid part? And if somebody is going that way, how do we help others to come and know, it's like there's a strange kind of a detachment, and then how do we come back to the middle part?
Yeah. Now I was in IIT Kharagpur, and one boy came to meet me. And I was used to visit there for preaching. That's about 20 years ago almost. One boy came to me and he said that, I decided to become a brahmachari. Okay. I said, okay. And he had just been introduced 5-6 months before. And I told him, yeah, it's a good aspiration. Just complete your studies. You take care of your family responsibilities. Family debts are there. Any sister that we married. That's the normal recommendation that we give to devotees. And after that, you can join. He was not very happy. And he went. And then after a week, he came back. He said, I was reading Bhagavatam, I got a realization. I said, okay. He said that I am like Bali Maharaj and you are like Shukracharya. I want to surrender everything to Krishna and you are not letting me surrender. Therefore, like Bali Maharaj rejected Shukracharya, I reject you. So, I was taken aback and then I didn't know what to say. I told him that, whatever you do, stay in the association of devotees, take guidance of some devotees. So see, in the early years of our movement, it was that people would be asked, just renounce the world. It's all temporary. And so he had gone to Mayapur, he had met some devotee over there. And that devotee had said, you just join the temple. So he went and stayed in Mayapur for some time. And then he couldn't take it because he was so new. See, what happens is, for many times, initially, bhakti can seem like very enjoyable as compared to material life. Because bhakti is all chanting, dancing, singing, prasad. And material life is, I have to take this responsibility, I have to do studies, pass this exam. It all can seem very frustrating, boring, exhausting, anxiety inducing. But then, if we want to seriously practice bhakti, bhakti also involves taking responsibilities in Krishna's service. And then that part is not easy. So when that commitment doesn't come, then basically he stayed in Mayapur for some time and then he left Mayapur, went to some other temple. And after some temple, he came back and then he said, I want to be readmitted. He came to college and he said, I want to be readmitted to IIT. And then he blamed ISKCON that they brainwashed me and they took me away. So it created a big problem. But the thing is that in general, there is a very big difference between okay, there is spiritual reality and there is material reality. Now we want to go from material reality to spiritual reality. This is transcendence. So now material reality by its very nature is boring. Now, how many people can say that, I enjoy my job every day of the week, throughout the year? No, we do it because we have to do it. Is that okay? It may not be always frustrating. Sometimes it may be exhausting. Sometimes it may be frustrating. But majority of the time, it's that it's not very stimulating. Sometimes it may be stimulating. Sometimes it may be enjoyable. Sometimes it may be frustrating. So there can be a wide range of emotions. But broadly, the nature of material reality is that we can't really stay in that material reality for very long. And that's why we have third. It's like what you can call as fictional reality. Now, if it's fiction, it's not reality. That is obvious. But fictional reality means that we try to escape from this world. That's why people watch movies, people read novels. This is in one sense, there is an escape to a higher reality, that is spirituality. But there is an escape to a lower reality. Lower reality is like it's unreality basically. So dealing with the material world largely requires rajas because it's fighting, it's tough. But escaping to alternative reality, this is tamas. So many times, initially, when we start practicing bhakti, we are not so much attracted to Krishna as we are just exhausted or frustrated with the world. And we start understanding, pursuing desires, it's not really worth it. There's so much trouble in it. And after that, what I get also is not all that much. So what is the need of pursuing desires? That's fair enough. But then what do we do after that? If we go into tamoguna, then even in the name of bhakti, our devotees can just become very passive, very lethargic. And then when this is where, if somebody is not doing anything constructive for Krishna, then they start gossiping and they start bad mouthing others. Oh, this person not doing like this person doing like that, this person like that. Because we need some stimulation. So that's why this is something to be avoided. So how do we do that? I think at a philosophical level, we have to explain to devotees that bhakti is not so much about giving up desires as taking up spiritual desires. And at a practical level, we need to give some engagements to devotees. Now, initially, it's very difficult to know what is my desire for Krishna. So initially, we do whatever desires are, whatever is in the community, we have the opportunity to do service, whatever our guides tell us to do. And with time, as we ourselves come more to Sattva Guna, we get clarity. And then we become capable of selecting our desires better. Initially, we may select some desire, but the desire itself may not be so desirable. Or we may have the desire, but the desire may become too strong. And the desire may take us away from Krishna. So if somebody says, I'll become a movie star, as a movie star, I'll become a preacher. Okay, maybe, but the chance of that is like 0.1% happening. If somebody is a movie star and they become a devotee, that's a different thing. But somebody enters into the movie industry. There are so many things that need to be done. The Rajoguna and Tamoguna is so much over there that somebody going into that direction and saying that through that I'll serve Krishna, that is going to be very difficult. Is it impossible? No, I won't say it's impossible. It is possible. But it will require careful guidance. It will require a certain grounding, sattva guna, great strength in spirituality. So generally, for both of these, this is what we talk about, selecting and directing desires. It's important that we have some association, some guidance. Now, without that guidance, which desire to select and how to direct that desire towards Krishna, that may be difficult. Does it answer the question? Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, please.
So regarding this one, the selective and in the beginning days, it's easy for us to take that guidance and to be, that guided regarding the desires. But over a period of time, when you spend a few decades in the bhakti movement, it becomes the challenging that we take that guidance and reform our desires. Then it becomes our inner motives are there, as you said in the beginning, that we need to offer what is there in our heart to Krishna till the time. So that comes into the picture, and our own interest comes to the top. Then we start manipulating the things.
Well, when you use the word, so the question, if I understand it, is that initially it is easier to take guidance from others about what to do and how to offer it to Krishna. But as we grow, then it becomes a little more difficult.
Yes.
And that's fair enough. See, it is like a parent and a child. So, at one level, the purpose of parenting is to protect the child, to guide the child. But eventually, the purpose of parenting is so that the child should be able to take good decisions, even when the parents are not there. Now, there is a danger of being overprotective. So, if the parents are too much protecting, the child cannot make any decisions on their own. The child becomes over dependent on the parent. And that is not a healthy situation, because then when the parent is not available, what will the child do? See, in English there is a word called autonomy. Now, autonomy, it can refer to independence, but autonomy means individual initiative. So, for example, now this is well documented in America. It might be in other parts of the world also. But in America, many war veterans, those who say go to Iraq, or they went to Iraq, or they went to Afghanistan, or wherever for fighting, or Vietnam especially, when they had gone for 30, 40 years, 50 years ago almost. So those veterans, when they came back, they found, if they had been for a long time, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, they find it very difficult to integrate back into society. And many reasons for that. But one reason is that if they are always habituated to following instructions, and now suddenly they come into a life where there's no one to give them instructions, then what are they going to do? See, military life, especially when you're deputed to some place, then what happens is that more or less the instructions of your authority define your entire life. So when they come back, many of them succumb to depression, and some of them have injuries and stuff like that. But autonomy is something which can take us in an unhealthy direction. But autonomy is also needed so that we keep moving in a healthy direction. So there was no one doing follow-up for Srila Prabhupada. No, his spiritual master was not writing, send me a weekly report of what you have done. Isn't it? So he used his autonomy to see how he could fulfill Prabhupada's instruction. So eventually, for each one of us, we will come to a place where we may not have any seniors guiding us. Now that does not mean we devalue the seniors. And we should always have some seniors to guide us for major decisions in our life. And it may not be guide us, but we can have equals who, thank you. We may have equals with whom we consult. Sometimes but whatever, we should not be, it's like, we could say, you could have two extremes. It's like over-dependence on others, where if somebody doesn't give me something to do, then I don't know what to do. Over-dependence is unhealthy, but now the other aspect of, instead of it, I would use the word independence, but I would use the word defiance. Over-dependence on others and defiance of others. Is defiance a common word? When you defy someone, that means we disobey them. They tell us don't do this, and we despite of that do it. So defiance of others is not good. That means if our equals, if our seniors tell us, don't do this kind of thing. Now this service is not good for you, or this what you are doing particularly is not good for you. We neglect them completely. Then that is also not good. Now we cannot please everyone. And some people may never be satisfied with it, but at least we should have some people who understand what we are doing, who understand why we are doing what we are doing. So now in between these two, the problem with overdependence is that there are many problems. One problem is that what if the authority is not available to guide us? Another could be that sometimes that, let's keep that only. That itself is a big problem. Authority the other problems can come up, but authority may not be available. And defiance means sometimes what we think we are doing for Krishna, we may actually be attracted by Maya in the process. Something may start off as a desire, I'm going to do this for Krishna. Like somebody thinks that, okay, I want to earn $1 billion and I will build the biggest temple for Krishna. And for that they get into business. And they get into business and they say, okay, in business, I have to go for corporate dinners. So there, I have to eat food with them. So we start eating food which is not offered to Krishna. And we say, I'll offer it in the minor ticket. And afterwards we start thinking, actually I'm doing such a big service for Krishna. So even my service is so big. Even if I eat a little bit, even if I drink a little bit wine, what is the problem? Even if I eat a little bit food that should not be taken, what is the problem? So there have to be boundaries. Now the same boundaries may not be applicable for everyone. For somebody whose job does not require them to go to any kind of corporate dinner or like that, they can say, all the time I'll take only prasad that is properly offered to Krishna. For somebody's job requires them to travel and it's not possible, they may adjust some boundaries. But how much are we adjusting the boundaries? That is something, somebody should be keeping a tap on that. So if we don't keep a tap on that, then what will happen is that we may go too far in our we may think that I am serving Krishna, but are we really serving Krishna? When I started going to America, in the West, the culture is quite different. So I was in Texas. I did a program, and the one American girl, she's college program. She asked a question that why do religions fight among each other? So I answered elaborately. I explained the concept of the modes. I explained about how sectarianism and everything. And she was quite satisfied with the answer. So then after that, I was talking with the participants, and she came to me and she said, this question had been burdening me for so long. And your answer has really satisfied me. I'm very grateful. Can I give you a hug? So then the devotee was organizing the program. I saw him and I just said, help me. So then he helped me, but in a very unexpected way. He said, he's a monk. On his behalf, you can hug me. I was thinking this was not what I said. His wife was next to him. And his wife said, I am his wife. On his behalf, you can hug me. So, and I told this incident to my spiritual master, and he was laughing. And he said that, actually, according to cultural context, for them, a hug is simply an expression of appreciation or affection or gratitude. He said, culturally, what they're offering, their intention may not be bad. But from our culture's perspective as a brahmachari, we cannot accept that expression. But while not accepting that expression, we cannot reject that intention. So now how to do that? What to do, what not to do? That is, it's something which has to be carefully done. So sometimes certain boundaries may have to be negotiated. But the idea is that while negotiating the boundaries, that does not mean every boundary can be negotiated. So that's why whatever we are trying to do for Krishna, it needs to be within certain boundaries. So the same boundary, so for example, if some devotee is very intellectual. Now that intellectual devotee may want to read a lot of books. They may read Prabhupada's books, they may read Priyasacharya's books, they may read other Sampradaya's books. They may even read maybe atheistic books to know how to respond to atheists. They may read some Mayavadi books to know how to respond to Mayavadis. So for some people, reading a lot may actually equip them so that they can serve Krishna better. And if you tell them, don't read any books except Prabhupada's books, they'll feel suffocated by that. But on the other hand, for those, so some people live in books. That is what is the most important thing in their life. Even before they came to bhakti. I know we have a circle of friends. But all of us, I talk with them, all of us, before we came to bhakti, it was like we would all read about between 50 to 100 books every year. So, like one book per week, and sometimes a small book will read 2 books per week. So, so that is just like, what is that? The word for it is, and the negative word for it is a bookworm or nerd or something like that. But the point is, for some people, like if somebody is into music, and you tell them to be faithful to Prabhupada, you should always sing only Prabhupada dhun, no other dhun. If you're singing any other dhun, any other tune, you're being unfaithful to Prabhupada. They'll feel musically suffocated. So now somebody may say that, okay, I want to see what are the contemporary musical trends. And for that they may decide, I want to hear contemporary music. Now, in the contemporary music they may hear and they say, okay, this particular musical form we can use in Krishna service. And they can do that. But should everyone do that? Maybe not necessary. So the boundaries can be negotiable. So somebody can read a lot of books and they can take intellectual substance from those books and offer and use that in Krishna's service. For somebody, it may be difficult. For somebody who wants to cook for Krishna, there may we have certain items that we cook within, we learn from the tradition. There may be other items also, which we may learn, okay, this is also item, this can be cooked like this can be cooked like that. Now, there are devotees in the West, who are, they're like many people who give up meat, but they still want that taste. Not necessarily that taste, but something similar. So, what are vegetarian items which could satisfy that particular longing? Like we have, in the past it was no tea. Now, herbal tea is like that word herbal tea is a word in which you can have 1,000 categories of teas, isn't it? So now somebody who cannot give up tea, they may explore which all herbal teas are there and which teas satisfy my taste. And somebody can become a specialist in that. That's okay. So I think some amount of regulation has to be there. Some boundaries have to be there. So again, the one point of autonomy we could say is that there can be negotiable boundaries. But negotiable, what does the negotiable boundaries means? That if we consider no boundary is negotiable. If we consider no boundary is negotiable, then what will happen is a person will feel suffocated. This is the kind of dress you have to wear, this is the kind of tilak you have to wear, this is the kind of hairstyle you need to have, this is the way your home should be structured, this is what you should do in the morning, this is what you should do at time, this is what I should do. If no boundary is negotiable, then most people will feel suffocated. But on the other hand, if all boundaries are negotiable, then we will end up degraded. There'll be no bhakti left only, isn't it? Like they said, be open-minded. That's good. But we can't be so open-minded that our brains fall out. Isn't it? The idea is, like an open mind is like an open mouth. The mouth needs to be open to take in some food. But after the food has gone, you have to close it. If the mouth is open only, the food will not benefit. So like that, we can be open to new ideas. But after we have given a hearing to the ideas, which idea can I apply now? So to apply that, I have to commit myself in some way. So that's why negotiable boundaries, they can be there. We use our intelligence and then we seek guidance. So when there's intelligence and guidance, then gradually we will learn. And eventually, it's our own experience also comes in. That we try certain things, some things work, some things don't work. So we have to decide how to take it forward. Will I answer your question? Any other questions or comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wisdom you are sharing. As I sit here today, I see many parents with their children and my heart moves. I don't feel Krishna as a distant story. I feel him as an aura, a living presence that surrounds me, flows through me, and especially when I fall silent, he is not a tale I once heard. He is the energy I experience. Today, even the most educated people are involved in crimes because of their desires. It shows us education alone is not enough. Degrees train the mind, but values train the heart. From age 1 to 8, a child's brain operates in theta waves, deeply calm and emotional open. At that age, they are not just learning ABCD, they are learning how to be a human in hyper-digital world. Even science says that heart carries 40,000 neurons connected to brain. Children observe more from presence than from instruction, but many parents never received emotional, spiritual, natural intelligence growing up, not because they didn't care, but because no one gave it to them. This is the perfect time to shape a calm, kind, resilient being for coming generation. For example, even Krishna once asked Dronacharya, "What do you think of your son Ashwadhama?" Not because Krishna didn't know, but to show the weight of a parent's intention, a parent's thoughts, expectations, and silent beliefs shape the child's destiny. Ashwadhama had a knowledge, but he lacked emotional intelligence and spiritual grounding, as we saw how that ended pain, regret, and ruined his life. Today, too, our children may become intelligent, but without emotional, spiritual, natural intelligence, what kind of world we are building? So, can something be implemented either through government or spiritual model like ISKCON, where trained experts in emotional, spiritual, and natural intelligence can guide children during these years? Because if school teaches the mind, shouldn't society teach the heart? That's my question.
Yeah, it's a valid question. I'll summarize the question that our education system can train the brain, but it doesn't really educate our emotions. And even parents may not be able to educate in emotional intelligence. So, can something be done about that? Yes, certainly. I'd say two, three things. In general, it's not that in the past there was no emotional intelligence. It is more that in the past society had a greater structure. Society, when the society has more structure, then there's an advantage and the disadvantage. The positive and the negative. The negative is that there is less autonomy, there are less options. That when I say society is more structured means that if you're born in a particular family, then there's a particular, mostly children would take up the job of the parents. It is not just because of the Varnashrama caste system in India, even the West. If somebody is born in a farmer, somebody is born a cobbler, they would do cobblery work. That's how it was. It was more like class than caste over there. So in the past, there was very little autonomy. What we nowadays call as upward mobility for people. Like that was not there. It was universal. But the positive of it is that, the more options you have, the more anxiety comes up about which option to choose. So less options, less autonomy also means less anxiety. So having more choices when society is more structured, there is a problem in that, but there's a positive in that also. So for example, the world has always been changing, but the pace and the degree of the change that has been there in the last even 20 years since internet became widespread, that has been more than what was there in the past 200 years. And the change that has been there in the past 200 years has probably been much more than the change that was there in the past 2000 years. Change has always been there at a political level, at a cultural level. But the way technology has affected life, and then technology doesn't just shape society, it also shapes values. So basically, the more unstructured society becomes. What do you mean by structure? Not being there, one is career. Sometimes there is this whole, the Western or the leftist narrative with respect to feminism, for example, is that, women in the past had no career options. And that was true, but actually even men didn't have career options. What do I mean by that? It is that till if you consider till the Industrial Revolution, for most men, whatever family you were born in, that was your career. It was not that, I have a particular interest in a particular field and this is what I am going to pursue a career. That option was not there. So autonomy is a very, relatively speaking, a modern value. So by 16th, 17th century, 17th, 18th century roughly, men started getting more autonomy. When the society started becoming less structured. That means the Industrial Revolution happened, you can go into a factory, you can become a capitalist, you can earn money, you can have, as they call, upward mobility. And within about 150, 200 years after that, the suffragette movement came in the West, feminism started growing. Now women also have options. Now, yes, we can say the amount of options men have maybe more than women. I don't want to get into the gender issue. My point is that the flip side of having options is anxiety. Because when there are too many options, we have the responsibility for choosing among options. Say, if we have some fever and we go to a doctor, and the doctor says, based on these symptoms, this fever may be caused by either this disease, this disease, this disease, this disease, this disease. There are 8 possible options. And for each of these diseases, there are 3 possible treatments. And now among these 24 options, what do you want to do? How are you going to decide? So, now this is having too many options. On the other hand, if there is a village or locality, there's only one doctor. And the doctor misdiagnoses. The doctor says, okay, this particular disease is that you have to do surgery for the disease. You say, no, I want to take some second opinion. So then we should have some second opinion, thirds. So too little options is a problem. Too many options can also be a problem. So I would say that when we say nowadays emotional intelligence is lacking, it is true, but in the past, the social structure was such that within that itself, the level of agitation of the emotions would be much lesser. And the level of complexity of choices that people had to make was lesser. And that's why it is not that emotional intelligence was lacking, it was just that emotional complexity was lesser. And let's say emotional intelligence that was required was also lesser. So, having said that, yes, emotional intelligence is very much required. And now developing that, how much can spiritual organizations play a part in that? Well, I would say that from IQ to EQ, there's a significant recognition that emotional intelligence is important. And now having said that, it's also that men and women think differently. And they feel differently. So women are more concerned with emotions. It's not that men are unconcerned with emotions, but men are more like, you tell me something to do. Now men are more like doers, fixers. I want to fix something. So it's that when there can be insensitivity, but there can be hypersensitivity also. And hypersensitivity can also be a problem. Like in America, when things can be too masculinized, where there is no emotional dimension adequately addressed. But things can be too feminized, where everything becomes like super sensitive. So, for example, if there's a competition, we don't want anyone to feel that they've failed. So give everybody prizes. If you start giving everybody prizes, then there is really no meaning for outstanding success. So now we may say we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Well, life is going to hurt everyone's feelings. Now we don't want to aggravate it unnecessarily. So we could say with respect to emotions, we don't want to be insensitive. But we also don't want to be hypersensitive. So being hypersensitive means, say in the past, for example, if somebody had some physical deficiency or some neurological deficiency, some derogatory words would be used to refer to such people. Now, at least in educated society, there's a little more sensitivity. We won't use those kind of words. And that is a good thing. But then, how far do you go? Sometimes, in the name of political correctness, we don't want to hurt anyone. Like somebody is short. They say that he's vertically challenged. Okay. There can be so many ways. Like there's one Mataji in America. She teaches English. So she says when she has to grade students. Now some students spellings are very bad. So she says that the grade that they have to give, she cannot write in the student's report in English. His spelling is very bad. So she says that his, what is it? His spelling is non-standard. Now, okay. But you know how we cannot be hypersensitive. Life is going to hurt people's feelings. So now, so somewhere in between, what is it that at one level, I was going to speak about this in the next topic, but I'll mention it over here itself, that there has to be, from at a level of society, so like emotional intelligence, at a social level, but at an individual level also. At a social level, we avoid speaking in ways that is hurtful. But at an individual level, also we need to toughen up. So you could say at a social level, there has to be some softening. So for example, in the past, if somebody would have mental health challenges, then they would be stigmatized. That if somebody is going to a doctor, a psychologist or psychiatrist, to pagal ho gaya hai. So it will be stigmatized. Now that is unhealthy. But then we have to have individual toughening also. That life is going to be tough. And we cannot call every single issue as a mental health problem, isn't it? Now, yes, the life is difficult and our emotions will be hurt and we need to be able to recover from them. So when we talk about the word dharma, I was going to speak this in the last part, but let's take this forward. Dharma has many different meanings. One way of understanding dharma is harmony or harmonious belonging. So for example, say all of you are sitting for this class. Now, how many of you know the person sitting next to you? The person sitting next to you? Almost all of you know the person sitting next to you, right next to you. So yeah, so many programs have been. But I think right, that person. So all of you are quite confident that the person sitting next to you is not suddenly going to turn and slap you in the face. Can they do that? Well, anybody can do that. But it's very unlikely. So whichever larger unit we belong to, we need to belong harmoniously. So dharma means that there's an individual and there is the collective. So if we consider, the individual has to belong harmoniously. If you're driving on the road, then we belong to the road transport system. We are joining the road transport system. So we belong harmoniously by following the rules of road transportation. So if somebody is coming for this class and they sit right in the front and they sit with their back to the speaker, that is disharmonious belonging. So that is, we can say in one sense, dharma is not just a religious concept. Dharma is harmonious belonging. So the individual has to contribute to the whole. So this is the sense in which Krishna uses the word dharma in, or rather the Gita uses the word dharma in 2.7. Arjuna is asking, what is the right thing for me to do? Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. At the same time, dharma is not just how the individual, what the individual does in relationship with the collective. Dharma is also what the collective does for the individual. So for example, if we are following the rules of traffic, then the traffic cops, the traffic police should also be impartial. They should be fair. They should not pull over and fine people from one community more and let go of people from some other community. So if, for example, if you are coming for this talk and say, if your dharma is to pay attention to the speaker, then if I represent the collective over here, my dharma is to give something meaningful. If you are paying attention, I should also be giving something worthy of your attention. Something you should be able to learn something of value. So dharma is both individual and collective. It is this sense of dharma Krishna uses in 4.8, where it says, Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So the idea is that here Krishna is telling that I will destroy the kings who are promoting adharma or who are spreading adharma, and establish dharmic rulers, and in that way dharma will be established in society. So individual and collective, both are important. So the individual has to do the right thing, and the collective also has to do the right thing. So a truly dharmic society, what we call as Ram Rajya, is where it is not just Ram is the king, but the citizens are also ideal. The king is ideal and the citizens are ideal. Now this is, in some people say this is utopian. And yes, some level of utopia is there, but we can go closer towards it. So bringing this point to the topic of sensitivity, I said that the collective needs to become more aware of sensitivities. So the collective needs to, like social softening. There are some words which are hurtful to others. So don't use those words. Some words bring about certain kinds of memories, certain kind of mental association. So don't use those words. But having said that, we as individuals also, we cannot control the whole world around us. So we also need to be, individually we need to be toughened. So now, which should come first? Should society soften first? Should individuals toughen up first? Well, in general, it is individuals who have to toughen more. And then gradually the individual may gain more power. And when the individual gains more power, then they can change the collective also. So broadly speaking, both are required. And so as when we are functioning in life, as devotees, we can try to become more sensitive in our dealings with others. And now sometimes it may happen that the individual may also get to the position of becoming a collective leader. And if that happens, then they can change the collective also. They can fix the system also. Somebody may get power, and when they get power, they can fix the system. But to get to that level, it is going to take time. So in general, in politics, there is the left and there is the right. So if we consider political philosophy, there is the political left and there is the political right. So now, in general, the political right is concerned with what is right in the existing system. What is right in the existing system, they say we want to preserve it, we want to protect it. So generally those on the political right are more conservative. Those who are on the political left, so conservative means what they say is that the collective is doing the right thing, you change yourself, you adjust, you improve at an individual level. So to political right is, they focus on individual change, individual improvement, individual responsibility. So for example, generally most religions tend to be on the right. They'll say, if somebody says, I cannot follow this standard, I cannot follow this particular ritual, I cannot do this. Come on, toughen up, be strict, do it. And now religion in general is following something which has been going on for thousands of years. And we don't want a religion which changes every week, isn't it? We don't want people who change their religion every week. And we don't even want a religion which changes every week. Like every week we go to a temple and we find completely different mantra going on, different puja going on, different deity being worshipped. I want some sense of consistency, isn't it? Now, the political left, on the other hand, is concerned with those who are left out by the existing system. So those who are left out. So for example, we may consider that, okay, we should go on Tirtha Yatra. And Tirtha Yatra we go by, say for example, Tirupati Balaji, the traditional way of going up is, you walk up the hill. But those who can't walk up the hill, come on, have faith, be tough, walk up the hill. But what about those who can't? We should create some system for them. So the political left is often concerned about social change, social justice, social activism. So going back to here, that what the individual is doing, this is the focus of the right. What the collective is doing, that is the focus of the left. So in general, for us to function in society, we need to see, like when Srila Prabhupada himself, he was introduced to, you could say, he was born in Bengal, so Mahaprabhu was known to him, but he was introduced specifically to Gaudiya Vaishnavism through the Gaudiya Math. But he was never like an office bearer in the Gaudiya Math. He was never a leader in the Gaudiya Math. So when the Gaudiya Math broke apart, and then one devotee recently asked me this question, why did Prabhupada start his own organization? Why did not, if he was carrying his spiritual master's instruction, why did Prabhupada have to start why did not Prabhupada continue with Gaudiya Math? Why did Prabhupada start ISKCON separately? So I told him, it's never that Prabhupada intended to start ISKCON separately. That basically the Gaudiya Math itself, after the departure of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, it fractured. And there's a lot of infighting between them. And there was infighting over, who will use the name Gaudiya Math. So they all came up with some addition, Saraswat Gaudiya Math, Chaitanya Gaudiya Math, or this or that. So Prabhupada saw that they were themselves doing infighting, and nobody was like one sole successor. And secondly, practically nobody from among them helped him. Some of them even tried to impede in his mission. So the institution, the mission was the same, but Prabhupada felt the mission he could spread best by starting a separate organization. So in one sense, Srila Prabhupada, when he came, it was, okay, the system is not working, let's start a new system. So you could say that initially when he started, it was more on the left side. But once the system is set up, then we have to have standards. We have to have standard procedures. What defines this? Say we may have a morning program, we have this initiation vows, we have this kind of these things. Now, how many of those are to be continued generation after generation? How many of those are there for that particular generation? It depends. Like Prabhupada gave sannyas to people who were 20, 25, 30 years old also. Now, we don't do that now. That was the exception where Prabhupada needed, and he did that. So, some things are not continued. So, I'm going in a little complex territory over here. But what I am doing here is that the broader principle that we can always look at how society is lacking. And the problem with the left and the problem with the right. The problem with the left is that they look at what is wrong in society and therefore they conclude that everything is wrong. And then extreme left becomes very destructive. See, the very fact that human society has survived, the fact that human society has survived, and at least in some ways, it may have thrived. We could say at a basic level, the lifespan, as not compared to Satyuga, but compared to a few hundred years before, the lifespan has improved. Living conditions have improved. So the left will look at everything, at what all things are wrong, and they say everything is wrong about it. So like there was some politician in Tamil Nadu, he said that Sanatan Dharma itself is like a COVID or a plague or dengue. It should be eradicated. So now for him, Sanatan Dharma basically means the caste system. Now, how many teachers of the caste system, Sanatan Dharma today, are imposing the caste system? How many of them are even insisting on the caste system? Now, in general, if politics had not been there, caste-based politics had not been there, now caste would have remained mostly for marriage purposes. And even there also, it is not that prominent now as it was earlier. So the thing is, you could look at what is wrong. The caste system was discriminatory, yes. But you say everything is wrong. That is the extreme left. Now the extreme right will say that they will look at what is right and therefore they say everything is right about this. And therefore anybody who criticizes anything about this is a bad person, is a terrible person. So that is also not healthy. So I think with coming to the specific point of emotional education or emotional intelligence, as of now, our movement is not very large. We are significant, but not very large. So slowly, if devotees individually take up the initiative and we start becoming more emotionally sensitive with emotional intelligent in our dealings with each other, and we offer that education to others, See, not many people are interested in spiritual education directly, but many people are interested in emotional intelligence. And for many people, the emotional and spiritual difference is not that much. They don't have philosophical understanding. So slowly we can help people to come closer to a spiritual understanding also through the path of emotional intelligence. Okay? Thank you. There's a question behind.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, am I audible? So
Yes.
when one tries to get attached to Krishna and develop spiritual intelligence and bhakti, it often leads to less time and less emotional availability for the family, for loved ones, and people who have taken care of us and have expectations from us. So how can a budding spiritual seeker balance both worldly duties and also one's own spiritual improvement? Like how can he do justice for both of them, which honors both of the duties?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, and if you consider, there are three things. There is, you could say, me, the other person, and there is Krishna. So we could say that there are three relationships: my relationship with Krishna, my relationship with the other person, and their relationship with Krishna. So now we can number these 1, 2, 3. So generally we may think that 1 is all that matters and 2 and 3 don't matter at all. But it's not that simple. Why? Because if we consider in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, from 12.12 to 12.20, or rather 12.13 to 12.20, Krishna is talking about what are the qualities that endear a devotee to him. And there, he's not talking at all about devotional qualities. He's talking about behavioral qualities. Behavioral means, he's not saying a devotee who fasts on Ekadashi is dear to me. A devotee who wakes up for Mangalarti is dear for me. A devotee who chants this many rounds is dear to me. What he's saying is, a devotee is calm, a devotee is kind to others, a devotee is calm. And Prabhupada and Krishna is not saying a devotee is kind to other devotees. He's saying that a devotee who is kind to everyone, Adveshta Sarvabhutana Maitra Karuna Evacha. And that is 12.13. But if we go further, 12.15, he uses even more foundational criteria. He says, Yasman no dvijate loko, lokan no dvijate chaya. One who does not disturb others, and one who is not disturbed by others. So generally what happens in any relationship, like I disturb you and you disturb me. And together we create a disturbed family, a disturbed society, and ultimately a disturbed world. So now what Krishna is saying, don't disturb others and don't be disturbed by others. So how is this possible? So we need to understand that bhakti is not just about our relationship with Krishna, because it is others are also parts of Krishna. So we could put it this way, that our relationship with Krishna is our sadhana. Now our relationship with others is our seva. And their relationship with Krishna is our sharanagati. That means whether they practice bhakti or not, that is between them and Krishna. We can try to help them. So in general, the priority should be 1 is more important than 2 and 2 is more important than 3. So we should be doing our sadhana properly, but beyond that, we should also be doing, you can call this seva, or at a basic level, you can call this our dharma. This is important. Now, if we are in a family, so we have to do our part in the family. If we are in a job, we have to do our part in the job. So when I earlier talked about belonging, that dharma is harmonious belonging. So the idea is that if I go backward over here, so if we belong to many larger wholes, We belong to a family. We belong to a community. We may belong to a state, a region. We may belong to a country. Like that, we belong to many larger units. And the ultimate larger unit that we belong to is Krishna. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattaha sarvam pravartati. So, while we are belonging to Krishna, at the same time we are also belonging to other units also. So when I go to, say, America, at that time, one of the key things that I talk about is that how I go to teach about spirituality, I talk about how we are souls, we are parts of Krishna. But if at the American immigration they ask me, where are you from? So I can't say I'm a soul from the spiritual world. And the immigration authority will say, okay, my sole goal is to get this soul out of our country. So at that time, I have to identify where I belong to. So I belong to a particular whole, and doing my part for that whole is also part of maintaining the system that is created by Krishna. Krishna talks about this as Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha is maintaining the world. Loka Sangraham evapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. So right now we are using the sound system. So somebody made the sound system and they designed it properly. That's how we are able to discuss. So every one of us, whichever whole we are a part of, we need to play our part in relationship with that. So to go back over here, 1, 2, 3. So one is we need to make time for our basic sadhana, basic relationship with Krishna. But after that, we need to do what is required in our relationship with the other person. And then, now of course, what we do, that we may negotiate a little bit. Maybe in the past, we used to go to parties where all kind of things would happen. We say, okay, I don't want to go to that kind of parties. But that doesn't mean we can never spend any time with them. We can decide how to spend time with them, in what ways to interact with them. So this is the recommended thing. Many times what we do is, we give the maximum importance to 3. You should chant Hare Krishna. You should wake up in the morning. You should not eat meat. So we give 3 the most important, and 2 becomes less important. And then if there is 3, there is force. If you put force in 3, then that creates tension in 2. Anybody will try to force to do something, then that creates tension. Because see, why the tension comes is, in any relationship, there is reciprocation. We do something for the other person does something for us. So sometimes what happens is, when we start practicing bhakti, what we do for the other person decreases. But what we expect from that other person increases. So then that creates a lot of tension. And if there is tension, then there will be distraction in one. Isn't it? So if we go this way, if we start with 3 and go to 1, we try to force the other person, you should not eat meat, you should not do this, you should not do that. And then there is some quarrel at home. If there's a quarrel at home, and then you sit down to chant Hare Krishna, it's very difficult to focus. And sometimes the other person wants to talk with us and say, I don't have to, I have to chant. They get even angry with our chanting also after that. Isn't it? So we need to be able to recognize that our relationship with Krishna is not just through our sadhana. It is also through our doing our dharma, through doing our seva. So once we understand this, now how exactly we manage the balance, that is something which will have to be carefully decided. So the ideal situation is, we start with 1, 2 and then 3. So we leave the 3 to them, between them and Krishna. And we do our part in the relationship as much as we can. So I'll make 2 more points, because it's a very important question in this regard. That when I said earlier, we can be negotiable. That so in any field of our life, we could say there can be rather than thinking of a standard, this is the standard I want to follow, we can think of something as not a standard is not necessarily one level. it can be a range. So range means there can be an aspirational level. And there can be a non-negotiable level. So aspirational level could be, maybe every day I want to wake up at say 4 o'clock or something like that. And I want to do Mangal Aarti, I want to chant, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to cook food in this way. I want my whole family to chant with me or whatever. It's an aspirational level. Now, it's good to have an aspirational level, but it's not possible to be at the aspirational level all the time. So then we should have some level which is non-negotiable. So for example, whatever happens, I'm going to chant this many rounds. Whatever happens, I want to go at least once a week or twice a week or whatever for some programs. Whatever happens, I want to do some amount of reading every day. Or I want to hear some classes. So have a range, aspirational and non-negotiable. Now this range can apply for our bhakti, and this can also apply for our dharma. Now that means, say, for any family member, there are hundreds of things we can do, and they may also have expectations of hundreds of things. Now nobody can do everything for anyone. If we try to make everyone happy, that is the easiest way to make ourselves unhappy. Isn't it? We have to, that doesn't mean we go out of our way to make somebody unhappy, not like that. But we can't do everything we can't be like simply a people pleaser. But that does not mean that we don't do anything for them. So even in our dharma, sometimes we talk with the other person. Say what is important for them. We may think, I'm doing so much for you. But something else may be more important for them at that particular time. Okay. So we may say, okay, when they go for corporate party, corporate dinner or something like that is drinking and all those things, I don't want to go over there. But they may say, I want my spouse there with me. It's important for that. Okay. If that is important, okay. So when we try to understand, don't agitate others, don't be agitated by others. That means what? That we need to communicate with the other person so that we understand that what is non-negotiable for me and what is negotiable for me. And we understand what is non-negotiable for the other person and what is negotiable for the other person. So once we understand this, so when somebody forces us to do something that is non-negotiable for us, then we'll become very agitated. Similarly, if we force them to do something which is non-negotiable for them, they will become agitated. So if we talk and understand, we say don't disturb others and don't be disturbed by others. One way of understanding it is we understand what is non-negotiable for others. And we make sure that we don't force them to change that. We don't impose our own way in that. And what is negotiable, we negotiate. Everybody has something which is negotiable, something which is non-negotiable. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. That how sometimes small things can be made very big. So in Maharashtra, Ganesh Puja is very big. So there's one devotee who one young man, he became a devotee, and his family is like generations of Ganesh Puja is going on in his family. They have their own Ganesh temple also. So when he came to Bhakti, he heard that we should take only Krishna Prasad, no other Prasad. So his parents called him for Ganesh Puja, he went and they gave the modak. So he took the modak, put in his mouth and he said, I excused himself, he went and from a window he spit out the modak. And then at that time, it happened that a relative was coming from there and the modak fell on their body. And that Ganesh Puja became a Kurukshetra. Now, it's no serious, it's not that big a thing. If you're 365 days, most meals we are taking proper prasad offered to Krishna. At that time if we go and take that prasad, we may say, this is non-negotiable. Well, who made it non-negotiable? You only made non-negotiable. It is something which we can adjust at that particular time. So, now I'm not recommending that anywhere anybody calls anything as prasad, we take it because it's prasad. No, I'm saying that we have to consider what is a big thing and what is a small thing. So now we may say, okay, taking only prasad is a big thing. Okay. But if because of that, your parents or family start saying that, you are getting brainwashed over here, you are disrespecting our culture, and I don't want you to go to the temple only. And then that is going to become a big thing after that, isn't it? So sometimes what we say is that, like a tree needs to have strong and deep roots, isn't it? If there are storms, there are attacks that can come. For a tree to survive, it has to have strong and deep roots. But the tree also has to be flexible. A tree that does not bend falls. A tree that is ready to bend with the wind will not fall. So similarly for us, our roots in bhakti need to be very strong. But how we function in society, it needs to be flexible. So roots have to be deep, but you could say the shoots, or the trunk. The trunk needs to be flexible. So when Prabhupada was in Mumbai, at one time some family, a wealthy family had invited them, devotees for prasad. And one of the disciples said, Prabhupada, there is onion in this food. And Prabhupada said, there's no onion in this food. He said, no, Prabhupada, there is onion in this food. Prabhupada said, there's no onion in this food. That devotee actually took out the onion from the food and showed it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada didn't even look at the onion, Prabhupada just looked at him and said, there is no onion in this food. And Prabhupada was so grave, almost angry, that devotee went and sat back calmly. And then they actually took the whole prasad. And then after that, when they're going back, Prabhupada said, it is our mistake that we did not tell them properly, clearly, that we don't take food with onion. So he said that for a traditional pious Indian family, if some sadhus come to their home and they sit down for food and then they go away without taking the food, it is like not just a dharma sankat, it is like a dharma vinash. It's a disaster. So Prabhupada at that point considered the devotional sentiments of that family more important than a specific rule of not eating onion. This is not a license to take onion anytime. I don't want to hurt other people's feelings. Not like that. But my point is that in different contexts, something may be a big thing and something may not be that big a thing. So we need to understand. And Prabhupada says intelligence means to keep big things big and to keep small things small. Or to know what things are big and to know what things are small. So that's why, with respect to our family, we want to become serious in bhakti. But serious in bhakti does not mean that we neglect what we are doing with the family. We need to give time for that. And our seriousness in bhakti should be such that we often waste a lot of time in prachalba, in just random TV watching, in doing this, doing that. That time can be cut down. So seriousness in bhakti should not mean that we neglect our family and neglect our duty towards the family. Yes, that is also dharma, and that needs to be done appropriately, adequately. Okay. So dharma should not come at the cost of bhakti, and bhakti should not come at the cost of dharma. Now, what to prioritize when? That depends. Sometimes if there's a big festival, there's lots of service in the temple, we prioritize bhakti. Sometimes if there's a wedding in the family, sometimes there is a pregnancy, sometimes there is some health emergency. At that time we prioritize dharma. Okay? Thank you. Any last question? Okay.
Krishna. Yeah, question is related to judgment project, like justification. As you mentioned, before we made any judgment justification, when we give there are 4 things needs to principles has to be followed. Suppose in scenario where you have genuinely not done any mistake, suppose, and when it comes to the matter of judgmental, so then just because of the other person is having much affectionate, he's much closer, having affectionate towards to him, So just because of that, we will not try to identify the actual truth, rather than try to put other person as a culprit or the more.
Correct,
And
yeah.
when he has given the much forgiveness and he has given the lot of tolerance.
Yeah, I think you asked me this question. I got the question. I'll repeat it.
Little bit more here. And in this scenario, when we and try to excuse, make it lighter way of the other biggest mistake, even though he might have committed, just because of the affection, we try to make it to very low, just like Chandra, Varuna, like big personality also have done great mistakes. What's the big deal? In this sense, how does it help both the persons? The person who has done the mistake to repent and make a progress towards, and the person who has forgiven and he has been rewarded as a culprit, as he has been hurt in a bigger way. So how does this situation help us to who is making the judgmental and both the parties and in the aspect of Krishna consciousness also? Thank you.
Yeah, so basically, if we are working in a particular community or in a particular authority, we find that two people may commit similar mistakes, but one person is strong actions taken against them, other not so much strong actions taken against them, and we feel that maybe this is because that person is closer, there's a more affection or whatever. So to some extent, we cannot remove the human element. We can try to be impartial, or everybody, the authority should try to be impartial, but the human element does come in. And being human means that we are finite. And our perceptions are going to be finite. So broadly, going back to that whole concept of dharma, I wanted to speak this one thing, so good you asked this question. That in general, whenever we face any difficult situation, whenever there is any difficult situation, we have three broad options. We can tolerate that situation, we can emigrate from that situation, or we can mitigate that situation. Tolerate, emigrate, or mitigate. So I'll give some examples of this. Say when Bhima was poisoned. At that time, Yudhishthira said to Bhima, don't make a big scene out of it. Maybe Duryodhana is just insecure. We don't want to split our family. Just tolerate it. So they tolerated at that time. But when the attempt was made to burn all of them in Varnavath, the Pandavas decided this is a much bigger conspiracy. We don't know who all are involved in it. So they didn't just simply tolerate it and go back. They just decided to stay incognito. So they hid themselves. They emigrated from there. Even after that, when they married Draupadi and Dhritarashtra called them back, Dhritarashtra gave them half of the kingdom, but that was the barren Khandav. And they accepted that. They said, okay, let us go there and let us be peaceful. But eventually, when Draupadi was dishonored, and Dhritarashtra remained silent, and after they went to Vanvas and came back, Krishna himself was a peace messenger, and they dishonored Krishna also by trying to arrest him. And the Pandavas decided, enough is enough. Then they decided to mitigate. So we can say all of these can be ways in which we can continue doing our dharma, we can continue doing our bhakti. So tolerate, going back to the earlier example is, we talk about dharma over here. Dharma is what? There's the individual belonging to the collective. So tolerate means we just continue, if we focus on our individual, we try to maximize our contribution. So this is tolerate. Just continue doing our part, and as we continue doing our part, maybe things will work out. So now emigrate means we just leave this and we go and start something separately. That is emigrate. So for example, when Prabhupada initially tried to work with the Gaudiya Math, or within the Gaudiya Math, he was staying in his in the ashram of his godbrother. He was continuing running a magazine of one of his godbrothers. He was helping them do some service. But then he was seeing that they were too caught in, I don't want to offend any of them, they were too caught in fighting or various reasons. They did not have that expansive vision for preaching. So then Prabhupada had, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, he came in his dream and said, take sannyas. Now he wrote to one of his godbrothers. And his godbrother said that, you have never stayed in the ashram properly. Sannyas is a very elevated thing. First you come and stay in the ashram leaders will observe you, and after observing you for a few years, then we'll decide about sannyas. Now Prabhupada did not have time for a few years like that. Prabhupada wrote to another of his godbrothers and he said, yes, you should immediately take sannyas. You come and I'll give you sannyas. So Prabhupada chose, okay, not in this Gaudiya Math, in that Gaudiya Math. Then I talked about how Prabhupada started his concept from Gaudiya Math. So he emigrated. Now when sometimes it is that, so we start a separate system, this is emigrate. This is second one. The third is that we gain power and we come over here, and then from here we mitigate. The Pandavas gained power, the Pandavas formed alliances, and they had enough power by which they could fix the situation. So each choice will bring with it certain consequences. If we decide to tolerate, that means the situation will not change for us. But sometimes in that situation, we may be getting some facilities. Say if you are working in a job where the boss is very demanding, or the work culture is a bit unpleasant. But we may decide, right now the job market is not very good. I also don't have so much experience. This job is important for me. I need to earn some money. So at that time, if the money is the big thing, then we decide I'll tolerate this. But if we decide that, okay, for me, being in this company is not that important. I already have a good track record. So I'll just leave this company and go to some other company. We may immigrate. Or if we have been in the company for sufficient amount of time, we have a good track record, we may decide that, this kind of behavior is not acceptable. We may complain to the HR, we may escalate the complaints, we may try to mitigate the situation. So tolerate, mitigate, immigrate. We all have these options. So now it is not that one is superior and the other is inferior. And each of these can be done in a mood of service, or they can be done in a mood of resentment. So tolerate is not suffocate. That means we accept whatever is going on, we don't try to change it, but are constantly filled with resentment and negativity and frustration. Tolerate is not suffocate. Emigrate is not run away. Emigrate is not so much we are running away, we are running towards something else. I don't want to get involved in this whole thing. I go somewhere else. And mitigate is not retaliate. You did this to me, so I'll do this to you now. No, we want to fix the problem. Now sometimes fixing the problem may require taking some action against the person who did that. But the point is not punishing the person. The point is fixing the situation. So in general, whichever larger whole we belong to, there will be some or the other problem. If we are looking for an ideal community, we will be looking for the rest of eternity. Isn't it? And even if we find an ideal community, we may not get admission there. Because are we ideal? Isn't it? So now, having said this, so we can look at Srila Prabhupada's life. It's like a Prabhupada's life also. Prabhupada sometimes tolerated, sometimes emigrated, sometimes mitigated. So mitigate means initially when he came to Vrindavan, he introduced his disciples to his godbrothers. But some of his godbrothers, they started telling his disciples, no, your guru, he didn't really spend much time with our spiritual master. He was a very new devotee. And he doesn't know so much. If you want to learn more about Krishna, you come to us. When Prabhupada heard this, Prabhupada decided, this is going to confuse and this can lead to destruction of his disciples. So he told them, be very careful about whom you associate with. He said, rather than taking them to other temples in Gaudiya Math temple, he said, we'll have our own facility and we focus on growing in our own facility. So sometimes tolerate, mitigate, emigrate, we have to do whichever works for us. So we have to see how we can best serve Krishna in that particular situation. Now, with respect to the particular situation, tolerate could mean that, okay, this particular unfairness is very painful for me, but there are other service opportunities for me. There is other supports in the community for me, so I'll tolerate this and live with this. Mitigate could mean, we try to talk with that devotee and explain to that devotee, or we talk with that devotee's senior, or talk to that devotee's equal, and maybe they talk with them. We try to fix the situation. Emigrate could mean not that necessarily we have to leave the community, but we could decide, maybe I'll take some service which is a little more autonomous, where I have my own space, and where there's not so much intervention of the authority, whatever. So there are many different ways in which we can deal with difficult situations. But on one side, we don't want to. We shouldn't let the expectation of the ideal stop our service to Krishna where we are. At the same time, in the name of the world not being ideal, that doesn't mean we let everything become terrible or things become unbearable. So it's like bearable so that we can focus on what is truly valuable for us. Srila Prabhupada has built a house in which the whole world can live. Now, that does not mean that everybody can live in any and every room of that house. But there are different rooms, and some devotees may be more comfortable in one room, some devotees may be more comfortable in another room. So we may have to find out which room we can stay. There's one Prabhupada disciple who is very humorous. He says, Prabhupada built a house in which the whole world can fight. Now, what he meant by that is, not that we should all be fighting, but he says that we can have our differences, but we don't have to leave the house. That we can find. So, cooperate can mean that we work together, but cooperate can also mean cooperate. Now, you operate here, I'll operate there. So, sometimes that's what it works. So that's how there is a lot of flexibility within bhakti about how we move ahead in difficult situations. Does that answer your question?
Sometimes we may go to the things bearable. Yeah, we wanted to make the things bearable also. Still, it goes, because even after you are genuine, even after the truth is known by all the parties, everybody has aware it. Paramatma is also known, but still things goes from the bearable to the terrible. Then how do we, still we are tolerating, we are going to our best capacity, and we are still praying to the Lord, and Lord is aware of the, in the
I think
also.
People have decided that they want to emigrate now. So I'll quickly make a point and then we'll stop. So see, in general, each one of us has to make decisions that what is bearable for me, what is not bearable for me. And then we create some boundaries for ourselves. What happens sometimes is that all of us, I don't know whether I mentioned this in an earlier class, I think I might mention it. In any place that we are, there will be people who value us and there are people who devalue us. Oh, what happened? This is also telling me to... I think it's the longest class today. We'll finish quickly. If you have any questions, we'll talk further, but I'll make this an important point. See, in any place, there are people who will value us and there are people who will devalue us. That's just the way life is. So now what we need to do is, we need to learn to value the people who value us and don't overvalue the people who devalue us. So there are some people who will criticize us or who will be displeased with us. We can't completely neglect them and tell them that you are committing a Vaishnava aparadh by doing this to me. Not like that. But we're okay. If this is what I'm inspired to do, then there's some people who will devalue. Say, for example, when I started practicing bhakti, I realized that I don't have many much managerial skills. And I didn't have managerial interest also. So I don't have any project that I'm managing. And so that's how I've been able to study Shastra more, I've been able to teach Shastra in different ways. But then some people appreciate this more like teaching way of sharing bhakti. But for some people, okay, you have been traveling, but what have you done? Is there any project? Is there any community? What is there tangible for you to show? So some people will devalue. And that has to be accepted. So whatever service we do, nobody can do everything. So now what happens is, we need to value those who value us and don't overvalue those who devalue us. So we place ourselves over here. The worst situation is where we are here. That means we overvalue those who devalue us, and then we devalue those who value us. Those who appreciate us, we start saying, these few people, you always speak good about me. But there will be some value in what they good speak about us. So we have to see there should be some people who value us. And then we take their input seriously, and that will keep us encouraged in our service to Krishna. Okay? When Srila Prabhupada also preaching, that some of his god brothers criticized him. You are not doing this way, you're doing this way, you're doing this way. But there are a few god brothers who did appreciate him. And Prabhupada also appreciated that. Prabhupada connected with them more, and that's how he continued on. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. So thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I hope all of you know that. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah, that is the energy we have received from Prabhuji last 7 days. I think everyone is so absorbed. Last 7 days I could see that everyone is learning. In the whole day I see that many devotees are discussing vital points, what Prabhupada has taught in the evenings. And I think this is the first time we are learning such a, that every time we have sang that song, but this, after hearing this class, we have a different perspective towards, and our glorification towards Prabhupada has increased multi-million times. And we are very, very grateful to this Chaitanya Charan Guru. He has taken out time. He has come here, he stayed almost 7 days here, and he has taught such a wonderful lessons to us. So let us thank Prabhuji, and let us invite Prabhuji in future also, and many times, so that we can learn such a wonderful things. So chant 3 times Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Please forgive us for the shortcomings. Thank you so much.